Hey everyone, and shame on you, Canada. It's all your fault. Blame Canada. Blame Canada. Oh, sorry to make a joke of this, but this, and you're not going to be surprised when you hear what publication this particular article is coming from. Check out this headline out of the Star. As bushfires ravage Australia, Canadians must hold themselves accountable. It's an opinion piece submitted by Mamona Hussein, January 7th, 2020. As people across the world rung in the new year with celebrations, resolutions, and new beginnings, Australia was being ravaged by bushfires. My last day of the decade felt like the apocalypse, tweeted photojournalist Matthew Abbott. The state of New South Wales declared a week-long state of emergency. While each year witnesses a fire season in Australia, experts say this state of emergency is not normal, and many scientists say the climate crisis is a key contributor to the burning of nearly 6 million hectares of land, larger than the entire United Kingdom. Scientists at the University of Sydney say more than 500 million animals have died since September in Australia's bushfires. I've realized this number is completely out of my realm of understanding. Let me just first point out, and I'll share these articles in the description of the video in addition to this one, are the ones saying or suggesting that some of these wildfires, or substantial portion of these wildfires, were deliberately set or as a result of arson. But since that doesn't align with the narrative being jammed down our throat by leftists or these ultra-environmentalists, they'll leave that out of the equation. These are 500 million animals who have done nothing to contribute to the climate crisis, but have been murdered at the cost of human convenience. Oh, wait a minute. Animals expel carbon as well, right? Animals breathe, right? Pretty sure they do. Or at least most of them, land animals in particular. And they do expel gas. What is it? Cows alone apparently pump huge amounts of methane into the atmosphere just from passing gas alone. So come on, trying to suggest that the animals are all off the hook? I'm going to call you out on that one already. These numbers will increase as Australia's fire season is expected to last into March and April. We have yet to understand the full impact of the crisis. While Canada has flown several dozen firefighters and fire experts out to Australia, can we truly rest feeling our national duty is taken care of? What about our own individual and collective contributions to this mass murder? I mean, just listen to the rhetoric. Listen to the way this is being portrayed. As if we're all evil mass murderers for merely wanting to experience the modern amenities, conveniences, and luxuries that come with living in a modern advanced society or world. As we turn the page on this decade, the Australia's bushfires stare point blank through our screens. Are we truly holding ourselves accountable to this and other global atrocities we are about to face? In early November, more than 11,000 scientists signed on to a letter published in Bioscience entitled World Scientists Warning of a Climate Emergency, saying they have a moral duty to clearly warn humanity of a catastrophic threat. It shows research that the climate crisis is closely linked to excessive consumption of the wealthy lifestyle. The most affluent countries are mainly responsible for the historical greenhouse gas emissions and generally have the greatest per capita emissions. The letter concludes with a call for major transformations in the way our global society functions and interacts with natural ecosystems. So first of all, I got to push back against this in this particular part, because when you're talking about, the fact that we Western societies, those of us who live in Western, modern, advanced societies, are the ones that are contributing the most, well, are you suggesting, that's the thing about, a lot of the focus does seem to be pointed directly at countries such as Canada, the US, or the developed countries. But what about the developing countries? When these environmentalists are saying that we got to, keep all those natural resources in the ground, stop extracting them, not only are they going to greatly affect and degrade modern Western societies and try to take us back to the Stone Age or the Dark Ages, but what about all those emerging countries? What about all those countries who have yet to achieve that amount of success or level of industrialization? Is this contributor suggesting that all those countries should give up entirely on pursuing better lives for themselves and their family? It sure seems that way. And when this author is talking about excessive consumption of the wealthy lifestyle, well, I can't help point out the hypocrisy when I look at who these people are that are doing the finger wagging. What I've seen and observed with my own eyes and heard with my own ears is the very people who do live those wealthy, entitled lifestyles are the very same people who will end up at Davos this year or at that COP25 conference that happened not long ago. These elitists, these central planning types, these people who make a whole lot more money than you and I are the ones who are the true culprits in making mass consumption, waste, and pure excess a part of their lifestyle. Yet none of them are willing to step out and lead by example. No, like I say, they prefer to sit perched high atop on their pedestal while they finger wag and look down upon the lowly masses who are just trying to thrive and survive and get by in this modern world. And when you're talking about the fact that it's these Western advanced societies or countries such as Canada who are contributing the most because of our greatest per capita emissions, well, then where does it make sense to bring in hundreds of thousands per year or millions over the next decade or so to these Western advanced societies where their per capita emissions are going to go from very tiny in their countries of origin to huge in comparison when they come to Western societies or countries such as Canada? Like I say, this stuff, none of it makes sense if you think about it for even just half a second. But your thought leaders, your central planners, and your political overlords, along with your media mouthpieces, genuinely recognize that most people don't give much thought to anything these days. They simply repeat and regurgitate what's been jammed in their head by their thought leaders, which is a failure all on its own. We need to do better in the new decade. As David Suzuki has stated, there's no shortage of solutions to respond to the climate crisis. It's now something we have to embrace as a nation, he says. We have to address it as if it's a war. Like I say, you want to be the general? Let's see you lead by example, David. Because until we see people like yourself leading by true example, don't expect anyone else to follow. Well, except the kind of sheeple that will do so. Canada's federal election centered on climate change, and the Liberal government promised legally binding targets, so we need to hold our government accountable. Canadian glaciers are melting at an unprecedented rate as surface land temperatures are drastically increasing in the Arctic. We need to question our use of all single-use items, our consumption of meat, our consumption of fast fashion, our travel, recreation, and leisure habits. Can we allow the lives of 500 million animals and counting to weigh on our conscience? Anyways, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below. But once again, think about this. Here we are in a country halfway around the world, and yet we're to blame, apparently, for the wildfires and the destruction and devastation that's happening down in Australia. Or at least that's what this author wants you to think. How many Canadians are going to fall for it? I don't know. But I guess we'll find out going forward. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.